The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Pacific Hotel cast dancing shadows across. The marble floor as hundreds of San Francisco's elite mingled in their finest attire. The annual Tech Innovation Gala was the event of the season, where billion-dollar deals were made over champagne and canapés. Among the sea of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, Ethan Rivers stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights twinkle below like earthbound stars. At 29, Ethan had already revolutionized the tech industry with his quantum computing breakthrough. His company, Quantum Dynamics, was valued at over $2 billion, making him one of the youngest billionaires in Silicon Valley. Yet tonight, success felt more like a prison than a triumph. "Ethan, darling, there you are," a familiar voice made his shoulders tense. Victoria Sterling glided toward him in a shimmering gold dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. Her platinum blonde hair was perfectly styled. Her smile was practiced to perfection, and her eyes held the calculating gleam that had once attracted him but now made his skin crawl. "Victoria." He turned reluctantly, maintaining the polite distance. That had become second nature since their breakup 6 months ago. "I didn't expect to see you here. Oh, I never miss the important events." She moved closer, her perfume overwhelming in its intensity. "Besides, I have some wonderful news to share with you." The unwanted reunion Victoria's fingers traced. The diamond necklace at her throat, a gesture Ethan remembered all too well. It was her tell when she was about to manipulate a situation to her advantage. "James Crawford and I are engaged," she announced. But her eyes never left Ethan's face, searching for any reaction. Ethan felt only relief, though he kept his expression neutral. "Congratulations. I hope you'll be very happy together." "Will I?" Though Victoria stepped closer, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "Ethan, I've realized what a terrible mistake I made. Money isn't everything. James is wealthy, yes, but he's not you. He doesn't have your passion, your brilliant mind, your way of making me feel alive." The words that once might have moved him now felt hollow and rehearsed. Ethan had learned the hard way that Victoria's love was conditional, based entirely on what he could provide rather than who he was as a person. "Victoria, we've discussed this. What we had is over. But it doesn't have to be." Her hand reached for his arm. "I broke things off with James tonight. I told him I couldn't marry him because I'm still in love with you." Ethan's heart sank. This was exactly what he'd feared. Victoria's pattern was always the same: create drama, manipulate emotions, and refuse to accept rejection. He could see other guests beginning to notice their intense conversation. Phones being discreetly pulled out to capture what would undoubtedly become tomorrow's gossip. The marine biologist across the room, Luna Martinez, adjusted the uncomfortable straps of her borrowed evening gown and wondered for the 100th time why she'd agreed to work this event. As a marine biologist at the city aquarium, she was more comfortable in diving gear than designer dresses. But the catering company had offered triple pay for working the tech gala, and the money would help cover her sister Sophia's college tuition. Luna moved gracefully between the guests, offering hors d'oeuvres from her silver tray, while observing the fascinating ecosystem of the wealthy elite. It was like studying a different species entirely. She noticed how they clustered in groups based on net worth, how conversations changed when certain people approached, and how genuine smiles were as rare as the deep-sea creatures she studied. Her attention was drawn to a commotion near the windows. A tall, dark-haired man in an impeccably tailored tuxedo was being cornered by a blonde woman whose body language screamed predator. Even from across the room, Luna could see his discomfort. His posture was rigid, his jaw clenched, and his eyes kept darting toward the exits like a trapped animal looking for escape. The woman was speaking animatedly, her hands gesturing dramatically while other guests began to form a curious circle. Around them, Luna recognized the signs of a public scene brewing. She'd seen enough of them growing up in a household where her parents' marriage had been tumultuous before her father finally left for good. The desperate decision, "Victoria." "Please." Ethan tried to step back, but she matched his movement, maintaining the uncomfortably close distance. "You're making a scene. I don't care who sees." Victoria's voice was rising, and tears that he suspected were manufactured began to glisten in her eyes. "Ethan, I love you. I've always loved you. Please don't throw away what we could have together. The crowd was definitely watching now. Could see James Crawford approaching from across the room, his face thunderous. This was about to become a three-way confrontation that would dominate social media and business headlines for weeks. His company's reputation, built on innovation and integrity, would be overshadowed by personal drama. In that moment of desperation, Ethan's eyes swept the room and landed on the most unexpected salvation. A young woman with warm brown eyes and gentle features was weaving through the crowd with a serving tray. Unlike everyone else in the room, she wasn't staring at the unfolding drama. Instead, she was focused on her work, treating each guest with genuine courtesy, regardless of their status. There was something refreshingly authentic about her that called to him like a lighthouse in a storm, without thinking through the consequences. Ethan made a decision that would change both their lives forever. The fateful touch. Luna was offering canapés to a group of tech executives when she felt someone approach from behind. She turned with her professional smile ready, but froze when she found herself face to face with the man who'd been trapped by the predatory blonde woman. "Excuse me," he said softly, his voice carrying a hint of desperation that is confident. Exterior couldn't quite hide. "I know this will sound crazy, but I need your help." Before Luna could respond, he gently took the serving tray from her hands and set it on a nearby table. Then, with movements that seemed both impulsive and inevitable, he reached for her hand. "Please," he whispered, his dark eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart skip. "Let's just play along for a moment."
Luna
Felt the warmth of his hand enveloping hers, calloused from work despite his obvious wealth. There was something in his eyes, a vulnerability that spoke to her protective instincts. She'd always been drawn to wounded creatures, whether they were injured sea turtles or, apparently, trapped billionaires. "Darling, there you are." His voice was louder now, meant to carry across the room. "I'm sorry I'm late. Work ran long at the lab." The blonde woman who'd been pursuing him stopped mid-sentence, her mouth falling open in shock. The crowd that had been gathering turned to stare at Luna with undisguised curiosity. She could feel hundreds of eyes examining her simple black dress, her practical hairstyle, her obvious outsider status. The performance begins for a moment that felt like an eternity. Luna stood frozen. This was clearly some kind of elaborate escape plan, and she was being asked to play the role of girlfriend to a man she'd never met. Every practical instinct told her to politely extract herself from the situation and return to her catering duties. But there was something in his eyes that stopped her. It wasn't arrogance or entitlement, despite his obvious wealth. Instead, she saw genuine desperation and a plea for help that resonated with her deeply ingrained need to rescue others. Traffic was terrible, she heard herself saying, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "I hope I didn't keep you waiting too long." The relief that flooded his features was immediate and genuine. His hand squeezed hers gently, a silent thank you that sent unexpected warmth up her arm. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying the natural authority of someone accustomed to commanding attention. "I'd like you to meet Luna Martinez, my girlfriend." The collective intake of breath was audible. Luna felt like she'd just stepped onto a stage in the middle of a play without knowing her lines. The blonde woman was staring at her with naked hostility, while other guests whispered behind their hands with the hungry excitement of sharks, scenting blood in the water. "First impressions, your girlfriend?" The blonde woman's voice was sharp, enough to cut glass. "Ethan, this is the first I'm hearing about any girlfriend." Luna felt Ethan's hand tighten almost imperceptibly around hers. She could sense his tension, but when he spoke, his voice was perfectly controlled. "Victoria, I'd like you to meet Luna." "Luna, this is Victoria Sterling, an old friend." The way he emphasized old left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Victoria's eyes raked over Luna from head to toe, taking in every detail with the precision of a customs agent searching for contraband. Luna could practically see the calculations happening behind those cold blue eyes. The cost of her dress, the obvious lack of designer accessories, the calluses on her hands that spoke of actual work. "Charming," Victoria said with a smile that never reached her eyes. "And what do you do, Luna?" I'm a marine biologist, Luna replied, lifting her chin slightly. She'd dealt with condescension before, usually from academics who thought fieldwork was beneath them. I work at the Maritime Research Institute. How ... interesting. Victoria's tone suggested it was anything but. I'm surprised we haven't met before. Ethan and I have been friends for years, and he's never mentioned dating anyone in the sciences. The implication was clear. If Ethan had been dating someone, Victoria would have known about it, which meant this relationship was either very new or very fake. Luna could feel the weight of scrutiny from the growing crowd of onlookers. The test, well. A new voice interjected, and Luna turned to see an older man approaching with the confident stride of someone used to being obeyed. He had the same dark eyes as Ethan and similar strong jawline, though his hair was silver gray and his face showed the lines of someone who'd spent decades making difficult decisions. Dad, Ethan said, and Luna heard a note of anxiety in his voice. I'd like you to meet Luna Martinez. Luna, this is my father, Robert Rivers. Robert Rivers extended his hand with a warm smile that immediately put Luna at ease. Unlike Victoria's calculating assessment, his evaluation felt genuinely curious rather than predatory. It's a pleasure to meet you, Luna. Any friend of Ethan's is welcome in our family. His handshake was firm and brief, the gesture of someone who'd learned to read people quickly and accurately. Marine biology, fascinating field. What's your specialty? Deep sea ecosystem restoration, Luna replied, grateful to be discussing something she was passionate about. I'm currently working on a project to rebuild coral reef systems using bioengineered algae. Robert's eyebrows rose with genuine interest. Remarkable. Applications for coastal erosion prevention alone could be revolutionary. For the first time since this surreal evening began, Luna felt herself relaxing. Here was someone who appreciated the value of her work without needing to understand every technical detail. Exactly, she said, her enthusiasm breaking through her nervousness. We're seeing unprecedented success rates in controlled environments. The next step is large-scale ocean trials. Victoria cleared her throat pointedly. How wonderful that. You two have found common ground in discussing fish. The dismissive comment was clearly intended to minimize Luna's work, but it had the opposite effect. Robert's expression cooled noticeably as he turned toward Victoria. Actually, marine biology is one of the most critical fields in modern science, he said with the polite firmness of someone delivering a business rejection. Climate change, food security, pharmaceutical development, they all depend on understanding our oceans. Luna felt a surge of gratitude toward this man she'd just met. It had been a long time since someone had defended her work so eloquently. Revelation as the conversation continued, Luna found herself genuinely enjoying Robert Rivers' company. He asked thoughtful questions about her research and shared stories about his own early career in renewable energy development. She could see where Ethan got his intelligence and his apparent social conscience. What struck her most was how different both father and son were from her expectations. Despite their obvious wealth and power, neither man displayed the arrogance or entitlement she'd expected. Instead, they seemed genuinely interested in making the world better through their work. Luna, Ethan said softly, his voice meant only for her ears. Thank you for this. I know it's awkward, but you're saving me from a situation that could have gotten very ugly very quickly. She looked up at him, noting the sincerity in his dark eyes. What exactly am I saving you from? A very persistent ex-fiancée who doesn't understand that no means no, he replied quietly. Victoria has been making my life miserable for months, showing up at every event, making scenes, threatening to hurt herself if I don't take her back. Luna's heart clenched with sympathy. She'd seen this pattern before in her work with marine rescue organizations. Some people became so obsessed with what they couldn't have that they'd destroy themselves and others in pursuit of it. That sounds exhausting, she said softly. It is. For a moment, his carefully maintained composure cracked, and she saw the genuine exhaustion behind his polished exterior. I've tried being polite. I've tried being firm. I've even tried involving lawyers. Nothing works. Can you think pretending to have a girlfriend will? Honestly, I have no idea. But I was desperate, and when I saw you across the room, something told me you were someone I could trust. Luna studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or calculation. Instead, she found only honesty and a vulnerability that tugged at her protective instincts. The decision the evening was becoming more surreal by the moment. An hour ago, Luna had been worried about whether she'd earn enough in tips to cover her sister's textbook costs. Now she was pretending to be the girlfriend of one of the most eligible bachelors in the country, surrounded by people whose net worth exceeded the GDP of small nations. "Ethan," Victoria's voice cut through their quiet conversation.
"How could I?"
"Speak with you privately for a moment." "Actually," Robert intervened smoothly. "I was hoping to introduce Luna to some colleagues who might be interested in her research. The Harrison Foundation is always looking for innovative environmental projects to fund." Luna's breath caught. The Harrison Foundation was legendary in scientific circles for their generous grants and minimal bureaucracy. A recommendation from Robert Rivers could open doors she'd never dreamed of. "That's very kind," she said, "but I wouldn't want to impose." "Nonsense," Robert replied with a warm smile. "Talent should be rewarded regardless of where it's found." As Robert guided her toward a group of distinguished-looking individuals, Luna caught Ethan's eye. He mouthed, "Thank you again." She found herself smiling back despite the overwhelming strangeness of the situation. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and conversations that were far more substantive than Luna had expected. Met marine conservation advocates, environmental lawyers, and philanthropists who were genuinely interested in her work. Several people asked for her business card, and she made appointments for follow-up meetings that could change her career trajectory entirely. Through it all, she was aware of Ethan's presence nearby, always within sight but giving her space to shine on her own merits. Victoria had finally retreated, though Luna occasionally caught her glaring from across the room like a predator waiting for an opportunity. As the evening wound down, Luna realized that what had started as a simple favor had evolved into something much more complex. She'd enjoyed herself more than she'd expected. The conversations about her work had been genuinely energizing. But more than that, she found herself genuinely curious about the man whose hand she'd held, whose desperate plea for help had led to this extraordinary evening. It was Ethan Rivers when he wasn't performing for cameras or escaping from persistent ex-fiancés. The question would have to wait, though, because Victoria was approaching again, and this time she looked determined to finish what she'd started. Luna woke up in her small apartment to the sound of her phone buzzing insistently on her nightstand. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of her studio in the Mission District, a far cry from the luxury of the Grand Pacific Hotel where her life had taken an unexpected turn just 12 hours earlier. She reached for her phone, expecting to see a message from her sister Sophia, or maybe a reminder about her shift at the aquarium. Instead, her screen showed 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, notifications from social media apps she barely used. The first message was from her friend Carmen, who worked at the Marine Lab. "Girl, are you seeing this? You're all over the internet?" Luna's stomach dropped as she opened her browser and searched for her own name. The results made her head spin. Photos from the gala were everywhere, her standing next to Ethan, their hands clasped together, his father introducing her to prominent guests. The headlines ranged from curious to sensational. Tech billionaire's mystery girlfriend revealed from lab to luxury. Meet Ethan Rivers' new love, the marine biologist who captured a billionaire's heart. Her phone rang. Name on the screen. They had exchanged numbers the night before, though she hadn't expected to hear from him so soon. "Luna, I'm so sorry." His voice was tight with stress. "I had no idea the media attention would be this intense." "I'm looking at it now," she said, scrolling through photo after photo of herself. "This is insane, Ethan. I look like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life. Listen, I know this is overwhelming, but we need to talk. Victoria called me this morning. She's not backing down, and she's threatening to expose our arrangement to the press unless I agree to see her." Luna sat up straighter. "What kind of exposure are we talking about?" "She claims she has evidence that our relationship is fake. She's been watching me for months, knows my patterns, and apparently noticed that I've never mentioned you before last night." The proposition 2 hours later, Luna found herself in a private corner of a high-end coffee shop in Pacific Heights. Feeling underdressed in her jeans and sweater, while Ethan wore a casual outfit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The contrast between their worlds had never been more apparent. "I have a proposal," Ethan said, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. "I want you to hear me out before you say no." Luna raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "What if we made this real? Not the relationship, but the arrangement. A few weeks, maybe a month, where we appear together at public events, long enough for Victoria to lose interest and move on. What do I get out of this besides becoming tabloid fodder?" Ethan pulled out his phone and showed her an email. "This morning I received 5 requests for meetings about funding your research. The Harrison Foundation wants to fast-track your grant application. The Pacific Marine Institute is interested in offering you a research position." Luna's breath caught. These were opportunities that typically took years to develop, if they came at all. "All because I stood next to you at a party? Because you impress people who have the power to change your career?" Ethan corrected. "But yes, being associated with me opened doors that might have remained closed otherwise." Luna stared at the email, her mind racing. The research position at the Pacific Marine Institute was her dream job, the kind of opportunity that could fund her projects for the next decade. What would this arrangement involve exactly? Public appearances, maybe a couple of dinner dates that happen to be photographed? Nothing intimate, nothing that would compromise your integrity? Just enough to convince people that we're genuinely together. The sisters' wisdom that evening. Luna sat across from her 23-year-old sister Sophia in their favorite taco truck near the university campus. Sophia was working on her astronomy PhD, brilliant and practical in ways that often made Luna wonder who was really the older sister. "So, let me get this straight," Sophia said, taking a bite of her carnitas taco. "A billionaire wants to pay you to pretend to be his girlfriend, and as a side effect, you'll get access to research funding that could change your entire career. When you put it like that, it sounds too good to be true, because it probably is." Sophia studied her sister's face carefully. "Luna, you have terrible judgment when it comes to men. Remember the marine biology student who convinced you to fund his spring break trip to Costa Rica for research? That was different. I was young and naive. You were 26 last year?" Luna groaned, knowing her sister was right. What? A history of letting her protective instincts override her common sense, especially when it came to men who seemed vulnerable or in need of rescuing. "But this isn't about romance," Luna protested. "It's a business arrangement. Is it, though?" Sophia leaned forward. "Because from what I saw in those photos online, you don't look at him like he's just a business partner." Luna felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I barely know the man. That's not what I asked." The truth was, Luna couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. Not just the obvious attraction, though she'd be lying if she said he wasn't incredibly handsome. It was the vulnerability she'd glimpsed beneath his polished exterior, the genuine gratitude in his eyes when she'd helped him, the way he'd made sure she got credit for her own accomplishments rather than trying to take the spotlight. The second encounter the next day, Luna was feeding the sea turtles at the aquarium when her colleague Marcus approached with an amused expression. "There's someone here to see you," he said, "and he's causing quite a stir with the visitors." Luna looked through the glass wall of the turtle habitat and saw Ethan standing awkwardly among a group of schoolchildren on a field trip. He was wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt, clearly trying to blend in, but his expensive watch, and the way he carried himself marked him as distinctly out of place. "What's he doing here?" she muttered, then realized several visitors were taking pictures of him with their phones. She finished with the turtles and made her way to the main hall, where Ethan was gamely answering questions from a persistent 8-year-old. About whether he owned any sharks? "No sharks," she said, approaching the group. "But we do have some very impressive rays if you'd like to see them." The children's attention shifted to her, and their teacher quickly gathered them to continue their tour. Ethan looked relieved to be rescued from his impromptu Q&A session. "Thank you," he said. "I wasn't expecting the interrogation from the third-grade marine biology experts. What are you doing here, Ethan? I wanted to see where you work, understand? What you're passionate about?" He gestured around the aquarium. "This place is incredible. I had no idea the conservation work happening here was so extensive." Luna felt herself softening despite her wariness. Most people, especially wealthy ones, saw the aquarium as entertainment rather than serious scientific research. "Would you Like a tour? Behind the scenes for the next hour, Luna showed Ethan the parts of the aquarium that visitors never saw. The research laboratories, the rehabilitation pools for injured marine animals, the breeding programs for endangered species. She watched his face as she explained her work, noting how his questions became more sophisticated as he began to understand the complexity of marine conservation. "This is what you meant about ecosystem restoration," he said. Watching her examine a sample of bioengineered algae under a microscope, "You're not just studying these organisms, you're actively working to heal damaged environments." Exactly. Luna felt the familiar excitement that came with discussing her research. Traditional conservation focuses on protection, but that's not enough anymore. Need active intervention to repair the damage that's already been done. The applications could extend beyond marine environments. Theoretically, yes. The same principles could be applied to soil restoration, atmospheric processing, even terraforming for space exploration. Ethan's eyes lit up with genuine interest. That's brilliant. Have you considered the computational modeling required for large-scale implementation? That's actually one of our biggest challenges. The biological systems are incredibly complex, and current modeling technology can't handle the variables we're dealing with. What if it could? Luna looked up from her microscope, something in his tone catching her attention. What do you mean? Quantum computing. My company's latest processors could handle biological modeling on a scale that's never been possible. Before complex ecosystem interactions, genetic variations, environmental factors, all processed simultaneously in real time. The implications hit Luna like a wave. Quantum computing could revolutionize her field, allowing for predictive modeling and intervention strategies that were currently impossible. Are you serious? Completely. I've been looking for real-world applications for our technology beyond cryptocurrency and financial modeling. Environmental restoration could be exactly what we need to demonstrate quantum computing's potential for social good. The unexpected connection as they talked, Luna found herself seeing Ethan in an entirely new light. This wasn't just a wealthy man playing with expensive toys. He was genuinely brilliant, with a deep understanding of technology's potential to solve real-world problems. "There's something I need to tell you," she said as they sat in the aquarium's small cafe, watching dolphins play in the main tank. "I've been thinking about your proposition, and it scares me," she admitted. "Not just the fake relationship part, but all of it. The media attention, the sudden opportunities, the way my life could change overnight. I've worked hard to build my career on my own merits, and you should be proud of that." Ethan's voice was sincere. "Luna, I want to be clear about something. The interest in your research isn't charity or pity. You impressed those people last night because you're brilliant and passionate about important work. I may have introduced you, but everything that happened after that was because of who you are, not who you were standing next to." Luna studied his face, looking for any sign of manipulation or false charm. Instead, she found only honesty and respect. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "You could have chosen anyone at that party to play your fake girlfriend. Why ask someone you'd never met?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment, watching the dolphins swim in lazy circles. "Because when I looked at you, I saw someone real. In a room full of people performing their wealth and status, you were just being yourself. I guess I was hoping some of that authenticity might rub off on me." The vulnerability in his voice made Luna's heart skip. She was beginning to understand that beneath the billionaire facade was a man who felt as isolated in his world as she sometimes felt in hers. "The decision if I agree to this," Luna said carefully, "I have conditions." Ethan straightened his attention, fully focused on her. "First, no lies about our relationship timeline or how we met. If people ask, we tell them the truth. We met at the gala, we're getting to know each other, and we're taking things slowly." Agreed. "Second, any business opportunities that come from this arrangement have to be legitimate. Disguised as professional advancement? Understood. I can promise you the interest in your research is completely genuine. Third, we maintain our separate lives. I'm not moving into your world and you're not slumming it in mine. We meet in the middle when necessary, but we both stay true to who we are. That's exactly what I was hoping for." Luna took a deep breath. "Then yes, I'll do it." But Ethan, I need you to understand something. I'm not interested in playing games or manipulating people's emotions. If this is going to work, it has to be based on mutual respect and honest communication. I wouldn't want it any other way. As they shook hands to seal their agreement, Luna felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She was about to embark on the most unusual adventure of her life, one that could either launch her career to unprecedented heights or destroy everything she'd worked to build. What she didn't expect was how natural it felt to be sitting here with Ethan, planning their elaborate deception while finding genuine common ground in their shared passion for using science to make the world better. The next few weeks were going to be very interesting indeed. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Luna and Ethan had fallen into a surprisingly comfortable routine. They met twice a week for carefully orchestrated public appearances, a dinner at a trendy restaurant where they knew photographers would be present, a charity art auction where Ethan's attendance was expected, a tech conference where Luna presented her research to an audience that included several potential investors. With each appearance, Luna grew more confident navigating Ethan's world. While he seemed genuinely interested in learning about marine conservation, their conversations flowed naturally, and Luna found herself looking forward to their meetings in ways that had nothing to do with career advancement. But Victoria Sterling was not giving up quietly. "She's hired a private investigator," Ethan told Luna as they walked along the pier near her apartment. It was a foggy San Francisco evening, and the Golden Gate Bridge was barely visible through the mist. "Someone's been following you, taking pictures, documenting your daily routine." Luna pulled her jacket tighter against the cold. "What kind of pictures?" "Nothing inappropriate," Ethan assured her quickly. "But enough to establish that we don't actually live together. Don't spend most of our time together, and basically don't behave like a real couple. Because we're not a real couple. Right? Which is becoming a problem?" They stopped walking, and Luna turned to face him. In the 3 weeks since their arrangement began, she'd learned to read the subtle signs of stress in his expression. The slight tightening around his eyes, the way he ran his hand through his hair when he was thinking. "What are you suggesting?" "My family is having their annual gathering at our house in Napa this weekend. It's a big event. Lots of extended family, family friends, business associates. Everyone's expecting to meet you." Luna's stomach dropped. "Ethan, meeting your entire family is way beyond what we agreed to." "I know, and I wouldn't ask if there were any other choice. But Victoria's planning to be there. Her family and mine have been friends for generations, and she's using that connection to force a confrontation. If you're not there, it'll look like proof that our relationship isn't serious." The family estate, the Rivers family estate in Napa Valley, was everything Luna had expected and more. Rolling hills covered in vineyards stretched to the horizon, while the main house was a perfect blend of rustic charm and modern luxury. Cars worth more than Luna's annual salary lined the circular driveway, and guests in designer casual wear mingled on the expansive lawn. Luna had spent an entire day shopping, with Sophia trying to find something appropriate to wear. They'd finally settled on a flowing sundress in ocean blue that complemented her skin tone without screaming trying too hard. "You look beautiful," Ethan said as he met her at the car. He was wearing khakis and a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking relaxed and confident in his family environment. "I feel like I'm about to take the most important test of my life, and I haven't studied for it. Just be yourself. That's what attracted my attention in the first place, remember?" As they walked toward the gathering, Luna was surprised by how many people Ethan introduced her to who were genuinely interested in her work. His cousin David Kim, who ran a venture capital firm focused on clean technology, spent 20 minutes discussing the commercial potential of her algae research. His Aunt Elena, who turned out to be a retired marine biologist herself, shared stories about her own conservation work in the 1980s. "I can see why Ethan is so taken with you," Elena said as they watched children play in the estate's swimming pool. "It's wonderful to see him with someone who shares his passion for making a difference." Luna felt a pang of guilt about the deception, but before she could respond, a familiar voice cut through the afternoon air. "Luna, darling, what a surprise to see you here." Victoria Sterling approached, wearing a designer sundress that probably Cost more than Luna's monthly rent, her smile sharp as a blade. She was accompanied by a tall, handsome man with prematurely gray hair who looked uncomfortable. Victoria, Luna replied calmly. I didn't realize you'd be here. Oh, the Sterlings and Rivers families are practically family ourselves, Victoria said with false sweetness. This is James Crawford, my fiancé, though I suppose you remember him from the gala. The man beside her looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Luna remembered Ethan mentioning that Victoria had broken off her engagement to James, but apparently that had been temporary. Congratulations, Luna said politely. Well, sometimes these things work out for the best. Victoria's eyes glittered. With malice? Speaking of which, Luna, I'm so curious about your relationship with Ethan. You two seem so different. Exactly did you meet? The confrontation before Luna could answer, Ethan appeared at her side, his arms settling naturally around her waist. The touch sent an unexpected warmth through her that had nothing to do with their performance. Victoria, James, I see you've met Luna. Ethan's voice was perfectly polite, but Luna could feel the tension in his body. We were just discussing how you two met, Victoria said. I find it so romantic when couples have interesting origin stories. Luna felt the attention of nearby guests focusing on their conversation. This was clearly the confrontation Victoria had been planning. She'd chosen her moment carefully, with an audience that would spread whatever happened here throughout their social circle. We met at the tech gala, Luna said simply. Ethan was being harassed by someone who couldn't take no for an answer, and I helped him out. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Victoria's smile faltered for just a moment before reforming, but the damage was done. Several people nearby had clearly understood the implication. How charitable of you, Victoria said through gritted teeth. It wasn't charity, Ethan said, his voice carrying clearly across the lawn. It was kindness from someone who saw another person in distress and chose to help. Something I've learned to value highly. James Crawford shifted uncomfortably beside Victoria, clearly recognizing himself in the description of someone who couldn't take no for an answer. Well, Victoria said, her composure cracking slightly, I suppose some people are naturally drawn to rescue projects. The insult hit its mark, and Luna felt her cheeks burn. But before she could respond, Alina Rivers stepped forward. Victoria. Dear Alina said, with the kind of polite firmness that came from decades of managing difficult people, I think you've had enough sun for today. Perhaps you should find some shade. It was a clear dismissal, and Victoria had no choice but to retreat with whatever dignity she could maintain. Real feelings later that evening, after most of the guests had left, Luna found herself sitting by the estate's infinity pool with Ethan. The sun was setting over the vineyard hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that reflected in the still water. I'm sorry about Victoria, Ethan said quietly. Should have warned you that she'd try something like that. It's fine. I've dealt with academic bullies before, and she's not that different. You handled it perfectly. Better than I would have. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Aware of Ethan beside her, the way the moonlight caught the planes of his face, the warmth of his presence. Ethan, can I ask you something? Of course. Why haven't you had a real relationship? I mean someone genuine, who cares about you as a person rather than your bank account. Ethan was quiet for so long that Luna wondered if she'd overstepped. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and vulnerable. I think I stopped believing it was possible. After Victoria, after a string of relationships that all followed the same pattern, I started to think that maybe my money would always be the most interesting thing about me. Luna turned to face him fully. That's ridiculous. You're brilliant. You're passionate about your work. You're genuinely kind to people regardless of their status. Any woman would be lucky to have you. Any woman. Question hung between them, loaded with possibility. Luna felt her heart racing as she realized they'd crossed an invisible line from pretense to something real. I should go, she said, standing up abruptly. Sophia's expecting me, and tomorrow's an early day at the lab. Ethan stood as well, but didn't try to stop her. Luna, wait. She turned back, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. This thing between us? It's not fake anymore, is it? Luna felt the walls she'd carefully constructed around her heart beginning to crumble. Ethan, we agreed this was just business agreements can be renegotiated. For a moment, they stood there in the moonlight, the air crackling with unspoken possibilities. Then Luna's practical nature reasserted itself. I need time to think, she said. Take all the time you need. But Luna, I need you to know that what I feel for you has nothing to do with our arrangement and everything to do with who you are. The choice the next morning, Luna was feeding the sea turtles when Sophia appeared at the aquarium, which was unusual since her sister rarely visited during work hours. We need to talk, Sophia said without preamble. They found a quiet corner in the research lab, where Sophia pulled out her phone and showed Luna a series of photos from the Napa gathering. These were posted on social media last night, Sophia said. Look at your face, Luna. Look at how you're looking at him. In the photos, Luna could see what Sophia meant. Her expression when she looked at Ethan was soft, open, clearly showing feelings that went far beyond a business arrangement. You're falling for him, Sophia said, and he's falling for you. The question is, what are you going to do about it? It's complicated, Sophia. Our worlds are so different. So, Mom was a teacher and Dad was in the Navy? Different doesn't mean impossible. Luna sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the emotions she'd been trying to suppress. What if it doesn't work? What if once the novelty wears off, he realizes I don't fit in his world? What if it does work? What if you're walking away from something amazing because you're scared? Before Luna could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. The Harrison Foundation approved your grant. Full funding. For 3 years. Congratulations. Luna stared at the message, her heart racing. This was everything she'd worked for. The validation of her research and the resources to make a real difference in marine conservation. But more than that, it was proof that Ethan had kept his word. The opportunities coming her way were based on her own merits, not charity or obligation. What did he say? Sophia asked, reading her sister's expression. That my grant was approved and I think I'm about to make either the best or worst decision of my life. The new beginning that evening. Luna stood outside Ethan's office building in downtown San Francisco, her heart pounding as she rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. The receptionist recognized her and waved her through to Ethan's corner office, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of the city and bay. Ethan looked up from his computer when she entered, surprise and hope warring in his expression. Luna, what are you doing here? Renegotiating our agreement, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Ethan stood up slowly, as if afraid that sudden movement might startle her away. What did you have in mind? No more fake relationship, Luna said, taking a step closer. No more pretending for the cameras or performing for your social circle. Ethan's face fell slightly. I understand. The whole thing was probably a mistake from the beginning. You didn't let me finish. Luna moved closer still, until they were just arm's length apart. No more fake relationship because I want to try a real one. The smile that spread across Ethan's face was like sunrise breaking over the ocean. Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to being just business partners. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. When Ethan kissed her, soft and gentle at first, then with growing passion, Luna felt like she was diving into deep, unknown waters. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of the depths. 6 months later, at their engagement party held at the aquarium among the marine life that had first brought them together, Luna looked around at the strange but wonderful blend of their two worlds. Tech billionaires mingled with marine biologists. Venture capitalists discussed conservation strategies with environmental activists. And Sophia was deep in conversation with David Kim about using artificial intelligence to track climate change. Victoria Sterling was notably absent, having finally moved on to torment someone else. And James Crawford had sent a congratulatory card along with a donation to the Marine Research Institute. Any regrets? Ethan asked, wrapping his arms around Luna from behind as they watched their guests enjoy the party. Only one, Luna said, leaning back against his chest. What's that? I wish I'd grabbed your hand sooner. As the dolphins swam lazy circles in their tank, and the stars reflected off the water, Luna realized that sometimes the best adventures began with a single moment of courage, willingness to reach out and help a stranger, and the faith to believe that real love could bloom even in the most unexpected circumstances. Their story had begun with a desperate escape from the past, but it had become something far more precious, a genuine partnership built on mutual respect, shared dreams, and the kind of love that could weather any storm. And in a world where authentic connections were rare and precious, it found something worth more than all the money in Ethan's accounts or all the recognition Luna's research might bring. They had found each other,